Suprabhatam friends, welcome to my channel Plants and Me. This is Dr. Devi from Mangaluru, Karnataka, India. A few orchids I had bought online. These are various colors of Rynchostylis. One, two, this has already yellowed. Three, and the fourth one. All these had come wrapped like this. I removed the rubber or rubber band. I'll just try to remove these from the packet. When the plants came, they were quite dry. The potting mix consists of this coconut chips. They have covered it with newspaper. When I got these plants, they were quite dehydrated, so I watered them. There is a rubber band. Oh, if I remove the rubber band, all this is falling apart. I'll keep it in this plant. This newspaper around this potting mix has done this damage. It has retained water or moisture, and the roots, they got soggy. This is the coconut chip. The roots have got soggy, and so this leaf has become brown or yellow. This pack I'll open. I had put a cut here at the base. Yeah, this is the cut which I put so that the water drains off, but I didn't observe the newspaper. This newspaper, now also it has got so much moisture. Because of the moisture which the newspaper had in it, it trapped the moisture. The newspaper trapped the moisture, and so the roots have become very, very wet. The moisture remained in this, and I think this root has rotted also. It has come a week ago. I was a little busy, so I couldn't see. This is the drainage hole which I made into this packet. This also is very, very wet. I am going to use these 5-inch orchid pots. You can see so many slits are there. These are all openings. This is a proper orchid pot. It has got drainage holes at the bottom, and these openings, they will give aeration to the roots. I am removing this newspaper, and I'll inspect what has happened to these plant roots. This root is okayish. There is a baby plant also in it. These roots are also okay. This plant root leaves, this one leaf has become brown. There are two plants in this. Probably this is a baby. I'll remove the rubber band. This is quite healthy. There doesn't seem to be any problem with this. So I'm using this pot. I'm using this pot. So this is a perfect size of the pot. There is not much space between the root ball. This is the root ball. There is not much space around it. So this is the perfect size. I have taken this coconut chunks. This is an old stock coconut chunk. Now I am going to stuff coconut chunk around this root ball. But before that, this coconut chunk is already airy, but I want to give it more. I want to give it more airy mix with this. I have added pumice stone powder and I use this Indophil antifungal. I am adding antifungal about 1 teaspoon to this whole mix. Coconut chunks, they already are a well draining type of potting mix. I will be adding this vermicompost. Almost the equal quantity of the coconut chunks. I have kept the plant in the center of the pot. I will now stuff the area around the plant with this potting mix. There are all chances that the coconut chunks might come out from here. So I am stuffing them tight. So this is one pot. I will cut off this leaf. It's brown. It will invite fungal infection. I'll keep it in the center. and then fill the remaining pot with the potting mix. All the 4 orchids have now been potted. Sunlight requirement for these orchids: they require bright indirect light or early morning sun. They can definitely tolerate early morning sun up to 10 a.m. For orchids, usually it is said they are shade plants, but under the shade net they will definitely survive, but they will not bloom. It's like Hoyas only. For blooming, sunlight has to be there for at least 2 to 3 hours in a day. Either the morning sun, morning tender sunlight up to 11 a.m., or the evening setting sun after about 3 o'clock. The tender or the setting sun of the evening, that is good for these plants. If sunlight falls on them, then only they will bloom, otherwise it's very difficult for them to bloom. That is about the sunlight. Water requirements: I have read and seen so many YouTube channels which say that orchids, they do not like much water and you have to allow the medium to go completely dry before you water it. I worked out a logic. Orchids are epiphytes. That means they grow on barks of tree. Bark of the tree will never dry up. There will be constant moisture in the bark of a tree. These orchids, they cling on to the bark, they put roots inside the bark and then absorb the moisture, absorb the nutrients from the tree. Obviously, the roots will be in a bit of moisture always. So the logic which I have worked out is, don't let the potting mix to dry out completely. It has to be consistently moist. That means the coconut chunk should not become very dry, so much dry that they will fall apart. No, we should not allow them to go that much dry. So watering once in 4 to 5 days would be very much fine. Once we water it today, after about 4 or 5 days, we need to check the coconut chunks. If they are too moist, then we should not water it. But if it is about to dry up, then watering it would be better. Once the roots dry out, the plant will have lots of stress and shock. And once the roots dry out, it's difficult to save the plant also. So it's better not to allow the potting mix to dry out. It has to be wet all the times, not soggy wet, just wet to keep the roots alive. The coconut chunks will retain a lot of water because it has got so much of husk in it. That is why we need to check the moisture and then water. Why we have potted it in the coconut chunk? It gives that orchid a feeling of bark. The roots will get the feeling of bark. The plant will think it is growing on a bark. So we are giving it an atmosphere which is almost similar to its natural habitat. In the natural habitat, as I said, the orchids grow on tree trunks and they derive food material from the barks. So same growing conditions we are giving it by potting them in the coconut chunks. On the tree bark, obviously from the moisture of the tree bark the orchids will derive its nutrition, but in the coconut chunks there is no nutrition whatsoever, zero nutrition. So to make up for that nutrition, I have added vermicompost. I will be replenishing the vermicompost once the plants use up. It will have to be replenished once in 2 to 3 months. Once the plants establish, they will start blooming. And if the plants are not blooming, then in the vermicompost we can add this is about 5-inch orchid pot. So we can add half a teaspoon of bone meal to the pot or in the vermicompost and add to the pot. That will induce blooming. Then there are a few preparations which we get in the market. Some blooming agents are there. Those also can be sprayed to the orchids. They will definitely bloom. So sunlight is essential for blooming. So I would be keeping the plant where it gets minimum 3 hours of sunlight in a day. These will be kept in the west side of my house where they get sunlight in the afternoon after about 2 p.m. Then for the moisture, nowadays it is rainy season, so I'll have to be a little careful with the water, but otherwise I would water it once in 3 to 4 days. In fact, my observation is that during the rainy season, the rainwater is completely different. So during the rainy season, these plants thrive a lot. They give out lots of root, they give out lots of shoots also. A few of my orchids are there in this orchid mixture only, but they are there in the sun soaking in the they are there in the rain, soaking in the rain. But I have not found any problem with those plants. They have neither rotted roots nor have they dried up. Nothing has happened. In fact, even ferns, all these, they love water, but water in limited quantities. Obviously water is required for growing. So those were the orchids which I repotted today. Thanks for joining. Take care. Bye.